All right. Feeney Talks with Friends, episode 97. We're here to celebrate a very important person today. We're celebrating Steve Famiglietti on his birthday.
Yep.
January 8th.
Yep.
At Panera Bread, his favorite place. And Katie, I can't thank you enough. This was your idea on podcast 92. And we have some wonderful friends here all ready to share. This is going to be a different podcast. We're going to have multiple guests because Steve was so important. He touched the lives of so many people. We're going to start with you. How you doing, Katie?
Good. It feels really good to be with a lot of people who knew Steve on his birthday. He would be 51 years old today. We lost him last year on November 22nd, tragically and unexpectedly. And I haven't been able to get together with people that knew him. So this is a gift to be with everybody.
The 1 hour mark of episode 92. We were just talking out and we started talking about Steve and all the wonderful things he did. And you said, hey, his birthday's coming up and Panera offers reward system, and it just worked out. And we're surrounded by so many wonderful friends from Fidelco, Oak Hill, Guiding Eyes, and the list goes on of all the amazing people and organizations that he worked with. And we're going to be sharing memories. You saw the B-roll. We did a group photo. That's going to be our cover page. Steph's going to put that in. So, this is Feeney Talks with Friends. My name is Eric Feeney. I use this podcast to talk to wonderful people in the community that are doing great things. And Steve was one of the most giving back people and gave back to the community. He helped so many people. And unfortunately, there are many that are not going to be able to receive his help. And but the people that he touched and was really important to are here. And we're going to share some memories. He was a blind vocational service manager. I'm going to be referring to episode 8. Go back and watch episode 8 with Steve. When I started this podcast, he was the number one guest that I had to have. He was top 10. So it was so important that I met and talked with Steve. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to talk with him. He started off working with my wife, and then we became friends, spending Thanksgiving together, doing chin-ups. He would text me on Veterans Day. Just an amazing human being, and he is dearly missed. I don't know if you want to start off, and then you were tasked to go around and collect friends to share.
Yes. So I started working with Steve in 2013, and he was one of the first people that I met when I started working at Oak Hill, which is a disability services agency. Steve is the blind services vocational manager, there, and so what he did was somebody would need to learn technology so that they could get a job, keep a job, learn in school, whatever it was. If their vision was holding them back in some way, he would be hired to come in and train them on how to be able to stay in school and keep a job and all that. And he was the best person to do that because he himself was blind. He was legally blind. He had some vision in his left eye, but he had overcome everything that he was teaching the people to do. He knew firsthand because he had to do it himself. He had a bachelor's degree, went to college. I think he was a resident advisor in his dorm at one point. Super social person, and just had a lot of obstacles to overcome in his early life and in his adult life, and he did it. And it was inspirational to be around him. Because he just had such a positive outlook on things generally, and he would make us laugh, and he just really cared about the work that he did. He was super committed to any of his students, and he called them students even though they may have been children, they may have been adults. He was amazing. I traveled with Steve and his guide dog Joel many times. We traveled to California to do a presentation at conferences. I traveled to Washington, D.C. with him, and we rode the subway there in Washington, D.C. So to see a guide dog lead somebody up an escalator, onto a train platform, making sure that he knows not to go to the edge of the platform, all that kind of stuff. Steve did all of that. Like, imagine navigating a major city without your sight.
Yeah,
And
DC's
Steve
scary
did it.
enough.
Yeah, Steve did it. He was amazing. So I can't wait to hear all the stories that everybody has for him here.
Yeah, and I knew when Nicole drove around Steve because the back seat is a big fluff ball
Yep.
because Joel was so furry.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then he talked at minute 9 of podcast 8, navigating escalators and stairs. He would explain that thoroughly. Just a wonderful teacher, very thorough in his explanation. Just a wonderful human.
Yep.
But you were the first guest. We talked on episode 92. So thank you for leading this off, and I cannot
My
thank you
pleasure.
enough. This is your idea. We're all here. We brainstormed it on 92, but thank
It
you.
came together quickly, and
Thank
I love
you.
it. I'm going to go find more people to talk.
Yep, you're a good friend, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Special guest, good friend here, and great uncle. He's not my great uncle, but he's a great uncle.
Right.
How you doing, Jeff?
Good. So, Jeffrey Fresier, married to Madeline Feeney Gallagher, and I am so grateful to her for many reasons, but high among them is making you my nephew. Maddie and I, about 7 years ago, started to raise puppies who would go on to be guide dogs. And we soon learned of a group that brought together puppy raisers and people who used guide dogs. Steve was the founder and co-host of that group, along with his dear friend Andrea Giudice. So that's when we first met Steve, and of course he was a warm host, and it just taught us so much. We were very new to the world of guide dogs, so he was an endless source of information and expertise. Guide dog schools need volunteers to foster puppies for the first 18 months of their lives, because until they're about a year and a half, they're not ready for the very difficult training that's entailed, very intense training, to be a guide dog. So, I mean, Steve really guided us into the world of guide dogs, and we learned so much about them from him.
And how many guide dogs have you had so far?
Probably 5 so far.
Wow.
With also puppy sitting duties.
And you currently are, don't you currently
we
have one?
We're caring for a guide dog who's already an older dog, used as a guide. His handler, his person, is on vacation at a Caribbean island where they don't have the same rules of accessibility that dogs can go into restaurants. So
I remember
we have that
Steve's
dog.
dog Joel needed respite, and Stacie Chung is going to share, and she took care of the respite. So that's wonderful that you do that, and you have your own dog too, right, Uncle Jeff?
Yes, we have a little Bichon, Keegan, and your Aunt Maddie trained Keegan to be a therapy dog, and they go to the local hospital to see patients. Guide dogs are so amazing. When they train a new guide dog, one of the basic commands is go left and go right. I know humans, adults, who have trouble with left and right. A guide dog is taught, of course, to help their person avoid obstacles as you go down the street. But if there's a tree branch hanging over the sidewalk, the guide dog could fit under. The guide dog can figure out, can my person fit under and I can go straight, or is it too low for them and go around?
Wow.
They are amazing creatures.
Steve talked about that on episode 8. He chose to walk on trash day, so Joel would manipulate around trash cans, knowing if there was enough space to go left or right, and to keep him away from the street. So that's funny that you say that, or it's remarkable that you say that, because it's so true.
And, as was mentioned, Joe had this depth of expertise in accessible technology. So we also saw him at our group helping people who are also blind keep up with the latest advances, making sure they were taking advantage of
Yeah.
the best that technology had to offer, which changed all the time. I think my favorite memory, one day at our group, Steve announced that he was looking for someone to take Joel, his dog, for a week while he was on vacation. So I asked him, can't you take Joel anywhere that you go on vacation? He said, well, but it wouldn't be fair to have Joel cooped up in a van for a week. I'm going tornado chasing. I do it every year. And Steve's passion was to chase tornadoes, and he could see the light and shadow, but also just feel the electricity in the air, listen to the chatter on the radios, joining the excitement of the whole group. So he was such an amazing person, and I think I'm particularly grateful that Steve taught me to really see the world of people who couldn't. I think I'm a progressive guy. I don't think I discriminated, but I realized I was ableist in my misconceptions about people who are blind. I assumed, they must lead very limited lives. And Steve and others have shown me that if you're blind, your life is still rich, diverse, full of exciting adventures.
Yeah.
And Steve epitomized that. So, Steve, we all miss you, and happy birthday.
Thank you, Uncle Jeff. Yeah, it was wonderful. He was he was an inspiration and a role model, and he did chin-ups, he chased storms, he collected cuckoo clocks, and it was wonderful hearing you share. I love you, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Uncle
so
Jeff.
proud of you.
Now we're going to welcome Chris Eastwood from Fidelco Guide Dogs, and he currently has a guide dog with him. How you doing, Chris?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
So you're a guide dog handler, trainer?
I'm a guide dog trainer instructor. I've been with Fidelco for a little over a decade now, and some of my responsibilities include evaluating, training, and placing our guide dogs with our blind students. Yeah.
And how well did you know Steve?
I'd like to think I know him pretty well. I met Steve back in 2018, actually, at an ACB conference up in Rochester, New York. And at that time, he had Joel, his current guide dog. And he was coming to the end of the career of Joel, and we all know how much he loved Joel and how wonderful of a guide dog he was. And Steve was kicking around the idea of initiating the application process to receive another guide dog after Joel. And I actually probably stayed in touch with Steve for a few months as he was going through a few different processes to receive a new guide dog. And I had the opportunity to complete his interview to receive his new guide dog. And I worked a little bit with his guide dog that he did receive before he passed from Fidelco.
Elvis.
Yeah. What a wonderful,
cool name.
A wonderful dog. Yeah, very
cool dog too.
Yeah. So
I spent a lot of time with Joel.
Oh yeah.
Joel would fur up my back seat.
Yeah.
My wife is Nicole Feeney. Worked with Steve for 10 years, and anytime they commuted together, Joel was in the back.
Yeah.
I'm like, Nicole, was Joel here? I know Joel was here. Fur everywhere.
Yeah, we call them German Shedders.
German Shedders. I've never heard that before.
But I had an opportunity to work with Steve and his guide dogs over the past few years on and off, and it was always a pleasure.
Now, I'm very interested in, maybe our listeners, I ask this on podcasts, what are 3 keys that make you great at being a guide dog instructor?
Good question. I would say some patience goes a long way, persistence, and a little bit of grit.
Okay. Patient, persistence, and grit.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with those.
Can you maybe show our dog?
Yeah. I do have a dog here with me today. This is a guide dog in training. He's actually going to be nearing the end of his training process, and I'll be placing him with a gentleman in New York in a couple short weeks. So, yeah.
What are like? What's the procedure? How long does that take? And
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about Fidelco Guide Dog Foundation. Fidelco is a unique guide dog school within the guide dog community. We are unique for two main reasons. We do exclusively German Shepherd guide dogs, and we do exclusively in-home training. So that means an instructor like myself will travel out to our students, stay in a hotel, and work with them for between 10 days and 2 weeks, every day consecutively, placing the guide dog and assimilating that guide dog into every facet of their life and lifestyle.
wow.
Yeah. So
I know Steve talked highly of Fidelco. I'm going to keep referring to episode 8, but he mentions it. Let's see. Minute 18. So
Okay.
go check it out. Fidelco,
Yeah.
and thank you so much for being here,
I
because
will.
I reached out to the Twitter.
Okay.
Dear Fidelco and friends, we are having this event, so it means the world that you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Chris.
for
It was wonderful to meet you, and thank you for sharing what you do. And it's very important that you got to speak on the behalf of Fidelco and Cooper. And you're an amazing person, and keep up the great work. Thank you so
course.
much.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
meeting you.
Thank you for your support.
Mark Hedrick from Neat. Let's see, I got my Neat shirt on today. Neat. Oak Hill. So hi, Mark. Can you just name your name, position, and relationship to Steve?
My name is Mark Hedrick. I'm a Senior Director of Education for Oak Hill. I work for Oak Hill School. And while I didn't work directly with Steve, I worked with him in the organization.
Nice. Yeah, and just thank you so much. It means the world that you're sharing some memories.
Absolutely.
Steve was an amazing person. I think he worked at Oak Hill for 15 years.
Yes.
10 or 15 years. He loved it. He lived there. It was very important to him. He made so many bonds and friends. And you have a favorite memory you'd like to share?
I do. One day I was wandering around in the main building and went up some stairs to check out some of the offices, and that's where I actually met Steve. I was walking around talking to people, and I went in and I sat down with him, and what I recall is he was so easy to talk to. So I sat down with him, and we're talking for about 10 or 15 minutes, and he leans over and goes, "Who are you?" And it was one of those really cool moments. And from there we laughed.
Yep.
I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't even introduce myself." And so we laughed, and from there on in, if I saw him on campus, we'd get into a conversation, and he was so knowledgeable on so many different areas. I mean, he loved weather.
Yeah.
And UFOs, and like it was so easy to get into a conversation with him. And we used to talk about his passion for storm chasing, and it just fascinated me with all the things that he was interested in, and how that zest for life, if you will.
Yep.
So
I know on podcast 8, he was like, "You got to come to Storm Chase with me." I'm like, "Steve, I don't even like going in the basement to turn off the lights by myself. I'm going to chase a storm."
Right.
But then we joked, and I was going to go with him, but unfortunately, something occurred. But it means the world that you're here speaking on his birthday at his favorite place. What'd you have at Panera today?
Oh, it was healthy, because my wife might see this. It was healthy. It was salad. With no dressing. It wasn't. It was mac and cheese.
Oh, mac and cheese is pretty good, right?
Pretty good. Yeah. So so just one a couple of weeks before the tragic event, I saw Steve waiting over at the bus stop, and I don't know, something told me to pull over, talk to him. I'd seen him there so many other times before, and I'm just so thankful that I did that, because we ended up just talking 15-20 minutes, and I went on my way, and that was the last time I spoke to him, and I just kind of hold that right here.
Yeah. I know I shared this a bunch of times. When I started this podcast, he was the number one person I needed to have on the podcast, and I'm so grateful that I got to speak to him for an hour and 15 minutes and just learn so much about him, and it's there forever. So I'm just honored, and we're really, this is a special moment for him on his birthday, for his friends to share some special memories. So I thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
it means,
Thank you for having me. Wouldn't have missed it.
all right.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Janet Goldberg, dear friend of Steve. So yeah, we'll get right into it. My motto is be a good friend. You see it on the stickers. Pick up trash that's not yours. Hold the door. Give a compliment. Be charitable. What made Steve a good friend?
It was just easy. It was just easy. The man, despite his challenges, saw more of the world than I will ever see.
Yep.
He took more risks than I will ever take. Knew more about more topics than I will ever know, and shared all of that, and that made him a good friend.
Yes.
I could call him, like tonight, I would be calling Steve, not only to wish him a happy birthday, but to say, Steve, I hate the wind. And Steve would be, oh, Janet, it's going to be okay. It's going to be wind from this time to this time because the storm's coming tomorrow night. And this is what's going to happen, and the storm's not going to be a big deal, and we'll be fine. Or he'd be very real and say, hey, you're right, charge all your devices and don't open the windows. He was just so knowledgeable, so kind. Even when he was in a bad mood, he was just great. And I have a lot of respect for him, and he was kind to so many all the time, always gave of himself. He was an amazing son to his mother. Very generous. He's just a good guy.
On the podcast, you said generous. On the podcast, he brought a check to donate. Very generous donation to Friends of Feeney. He lost his dad when he was 37 years old, so he empathized with the program and the organization. Couldn't imagine being 8 or 10 losing your dad. And then he explained this check had perforated lines, so he knew where to write. Just an amazing human being.
Yes.
Would you have chased storms with him?
No.
Did you like cuckoo clocks?
No. In fact, I always seemed to talk to him at the top of the hour, which I was reminded of all the time. My dogs were barking in the background. His clocks were going off in the background. I did not have the appreciation for cuckoo clocks that he did, but I respected his appreciation and his passion for them.
So you called him, we talked on the phone regularly?
Yeah, we talked on the phone regularly, saw each other in person regularly, come to my house all the time. Joel would always sit by my freezer waiting for an ice cube to be given to him. There was a lot of connection.
Was that connection made through your daughters that worked there?
Yeah, Leigh and Rachel get credit for the relationship.
No way.
They were friends with Andrea, Steve, Jen Baker, may she rest in peace, Don. They were friends with all of them because they worked at NEAT since they were 14 years old. And so they formed all the relationships and then brought, because of the age differences with everything, then I started becoming friends with all these people. One, because they were so good to my kids, and two, because they were great people.
Yeah.
And then it just became a multi-generational thing.
Wow. That's an amazing. Yeah, Leah, I know, well, obviously my wife Nicole Feeney works there. Yeah. So I would visit and drop off lunch, and I became friends with Leah and Rachel. They live in West Hartford, or they did.
Yeah, they still do.
Oh, they still do.
Share a house.
You have twin girls.
Yep.
I have twin girls. Mine are 15 now. You got any advice?
Are they identical or fraternal?
Yep, identical.
I will tell you what I tell myself all the time. It is one thing to be a twin. It is an amazing next level to be an identical twin. And I watch the beauty of that with my daughters every single day.
Yeah.
They have each other's back. They have each other's front. They give each other space. But it's a beautiful relationship. And I hope you get to watch that in your daughters.
I can't agree more.
It is wonderful.
Do you have a moment or a special, a specific moment you'd like to share, or you just overall the phone calls, the hearing the clock in the background?
I just knew I could call Steve to laugh, to ask a question, to share a story. He has had a gift, and his life was taken way too soon, way too wrongly. And for that I will always grieve.
Yeah. Well, it means the world that you're here on his birthday at his favorite place.
Yep.
You did great on the podcast.
Thank you.
So now
Thank you for doing this.
You're a YouTuber now. How's it feel? You're going viral.
No. You picked the right guy to have people talk about.
Yeah.
And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your time and energy, your act of kindness.
He was an amazing human being.
He was an amazing human being.
He's missed dearly.
Yep.
And there's so many people that don't have the luxury or fortunate enough to learn from him and to be around him, and we are blessed to have that opportunity. So I'm glad we get to share about it.
It was a gift. He was a gift, and thank you for your gift in doing this.
Thank you so much. Wonderful talking with you.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Steve.
Oh,
Hey, Stacie. I feel like I know you.
that really surprised me.
I know. I
Yeah,
worked
I'm
hard. I was almost upset that I didn't get a chance to reach out to you because he spoke so highly of you. And just so happy to see you here. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. No,
Minute 20, episode 8. He talked about you for about 10 minutes. You were the great friend. You took Joel when Joel had an operation.
Yep.
I reached out on your LinkedIn or your Twitter. Your husband is a bowler.
Yep.
Sorry.
okay.
I internet stalked you. Just tried to get you here, and you're here, and it's amazing that you're here. So thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't know what the stalking was about. I don't have Twitter and that sort of thing, so.
Well, I reached out to Guiding Eyes.
Did you really?
I said, Guiding Eyes, will you, Stacie Chung and Guiding Eyes, and all the friends at Guiding Eyes that know Steve, please come.
Okay.
I was just throwing my shot out there
Yeah,
to see
thank you.
see if it would work.
It
But again,
worked.
I feel like I knew you, Stacie. Joel, you tell us
Yep.
the story. How do you know Steve?
I know Steve because I am a puppy sitter for Guiding Eyes for the Blind as a volunteer. It's just something fun that I've been doing for about a dozen years. And during the pandemic, the person who normally sat for Joel couldn't do it because of Guiding Eyes being shut down and the dogs that they took on. And Steve was really getting into quite a corner trying to get somebody to sit for his dog. He couldn't take the dog with him because he was going storm chasing, of all things. And of course, with a line like that, I just had to see what this was all about. And Maureen, who is Guiding Eyes regional manager for my region, got contacted by Steve because she's also in his area, and Guiding Eyes, because Joel was Guiding Eyes' dog, they said, sometimes puppy sitters, your contact. Maureen called me because I love the shepherds that Guiding Eyes does. They don't do very many of them, but she knows where my heart lies, and called me and said, you want to sit for a guide dog? I said, sure. You'll have to go to Hartford. I don't care. I'll go. So I called Steve, and that first time we must have talked about 45 minutes and just hit it right off. And I came up, I met him, I met Joel.
At his house on the campus?
On campus,
Yep.
Yep. That was the first time I'd ever met Steve. And we just instantly said, yeah, this is going to work. This is okay. And I sat for Joel for a couple of weeks and found a lump on him that I mentioned to Steve. And Steve said, I've never noticed that before.
That's right.
And he talked to the vet, and the vet said, yeah, it's a fatty tumor, needs surgery. And I said, all right, I can rehab Joel after that. And Steve said, that's a bit beyond me. He said, I don't feel like, beyond just the ick factor, I don't think I could do right by the dog and be able to see if something went wrong. So I said, yeah, I can rehab Joel. So I rehabbed Joel through the 2 surgeries that he had. And by then, Steve and I were good friends, and it's one of those things that just happened.
He mentioned the fatty tissue was too close to something important that they couldn't remove it. He needed a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was stuck with the white stick, he said. The white stick is the walking stick. He didn't have Joel, and he missed him dearly, but he knew he was in good hands because he was with Stacie.
No, thank you.
Minute 20, episode 8. That's such an amazing thing that you do, that you volunteer your time. So you're a good friend. Our motto is be a good friend. And
thank you.
Stacie, Steve, you are such a great friend to Steve. And it means the world that you're here on his birthday at his favorite place.
Yeah.
What'd you have to eat?
I had the turkey chili. It's
Nice.
Very good. Very
Nice.
good. Yeah.
Did you ever meet Steve here for lunch?
No, I didn't. I live down on the shoreline,
Gotcha.
down by Mystic, Noank. And so this isn't a convenient stop by for lunch thing. But just knowing Steve, so many great things have come of that. Just meeting Steve and then meeting Andrea and the Janets, Linda's, the Linda who adopted Joel when he retired.
Oh, nice. Is she here?
No, she's
Okay.
not here.
Is Joel still with us?
Joel is still with us. He's at Linda's,
Oh,
and
no way.
she has an alpaca farm. So Joel
This
is
is
kind
Joel
of the,
right here, yeah,
the king
so-
of the alpaca farm.
Steve would come with Joel to my classroom every year, and then to the summer camp, High Meadow Day Camp. And he just loved to talk Joel from puppy to guide dog. He's just an amazing human being. So you know the cuckoo clocks then too. Oh boy.
The cuckoo clocks were the things that told me we had been talking on the phone way too long, because about the second or third time I heard them go off. What time is it, really?
You're like,
But
oh,
that's
it's almost 8:50. I gotta go.
like 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, Steve, I'm keeping up. No, it's fine.
And then he would not turn them off. They went off all night long.
Right,
He loved the sound throughout the night as well.
yeah. And Joel
Yeah.
knew the sound.
Yeah.
When
Oh,
Joel was at my house, if I was talking to Steve and it was on speakerphone, he'd hear the cuckoo clocks. He'd look around like, yes, it's dinner time. That clock went off.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. It's
Steve,
time.
when I was podcasting with Steve, it was Joel kept bothering him, and I'm like, "What's going on?" He goes, "Oh, he knows it's dinner time." I'm like, "Get out of here! How do you know it's dinner time?" He goes, "It's dinner time around 5 o'clock." I go, "It's 4:50." The dog knew it was 5 o'clock. It was amazing.
Oh,
Joel
yeah.
was so smart. He talked about intelligent disobedience, walking on the street with trash cans, maneuvering and navigating elevators and escalators. It just, yeah. So, thank you for what you did for Joel and
welcome.
Steve. I'm so honored and grateful to meet you. I feel like I
Thank
know
you.
and
Thank you.
It was like you were a missing friend, or like. What's that? 21andMe, when I found someone who was related to me, like you shared that friendship with Steve, and I had to find you. And I found you, and you're here, and it means the world. And I'm honored to talk with you. I said it multiple times, and I'll say it even more.
Thank you.
Do you have a final closing remark about Steve?
Steve, no matter how you knew him, he was the same. Whether you worked with him, met him through his work, met him on the street, were part of his family, no matter what side of him you saw, it was the honest, true Steve. Good-hearted, good-natured. He always reminded me of a child, and not in lack of maturity, but in his wonder at the world and his sheer joy and
Innocence,
yes,
knowledge.
no guile.
Yeah.
If he thought it, if he felt it, you knew it, and he said it. And just such a wonderful person to be around. So I thank you very much for doing this podcast and arranging this get together to make something positive come out of what was a very bad day. So not only for Steve, but Corey, for the families and friends. I hope that this brings them a joy and a smile.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I truly remember is when I was going to sit for Joel the first time, Steve said, Joel will wake you up at 4:30 in the morning. And I said, yeah, well, he can try. I've had dogs try that before. And sure enough, 4:30, I hear the paws come into the room. A little chuff. So I ignored him, see what he would do. He shook his head, so all the
jingle
things
jingle.
on his collar jingled, and that didn't work. And he put his head on the pillow and in my face. And I just turned my head, and he chest bumped the bed. And when that didn't work, he stood up on his hind feet, took his front feet, and slammed them down on the bed on top of me.
No way.
He said, you are getting up. And when I relayed that to Steve, he says, I've never had him do that. And I said, he doesn't try to get you up? He says, no, as soon as I hear him coming, I get up.
Oh, there you go.
So Joel
Problem
knew.
solved.
You will get up at 4:30 in the morning. So that's a funny story.
That is
I
great.
hope it makes
That is
people
so good,
smile.
Joel.
Thank you
Nudge.
very much. It's nice to expand my circle of friends and yet
Yeah.
another friend that Steve has
You're a good friend.
introduced me to.
Friends of Stacie, and it was so good to talk with you.
You too.
Yeah.
We will
Honored
stay
to
in
have met
touch.
you, and
Take care.
it means the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board of Directors, Friends of Feeney, Rob Parenti. You're on the podcast.
All right.
Finally.
Glad to be here. Finally.
And we have Steve in common.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, I just talked about you last podcast.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you
Jeff
for sharing
Dooley,
that.
episode 96, the voice of the Yard Goats. Go check it out.
I did.
This is 97, celebrating the life of Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And you're currently a teacher, but you did work at Oak Hill.
I did. I was a admin at Oak Hill School, so the school part of Oak Hill. Oak Hill is the mothership, and the school's one part of it.
And you know Mark.
I know Mark Hedrick. Yep. Him and I go way back, way before Oak Hill too. So we're good friends. So this is really great connection between Friends of Feeney and Oak Hill.
Great. Yeah, and you know our motto is be a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do be a good friend. We'll start with what makes Mark a good friend, and then we'll do what makes Steve a good friend.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of similarities between Mark and Steve. I'll be honest with you. They're both really, really genuine people. My philosophy is in life is when you surround yourself with good people, good things happen.
Yep.
And like I said, Mark and I go way back. I actually started at Oak Hill and got him a job there. So,
oh, wow.
So I got him his job there because they were looking for another admin. So him and I have, had a very good trusting relationship. Him and I worked very well together. We were able to run the school efficiently and effectively, but do it and having fun and being
Nice.
good bosses, good friends to our employees and things like that. So
That's
so
awesome.
he's a really good friend.
I know he said he worked in the school as well.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
all right, interesting.
Absolutely.
And you got
Yep.
him the job. So
I
that's
did.
a good friend.
I did, yes, absolutely.
Mark, he owes you. Mark,
Yep.
or yeah. I would say get him a drink, but get a lemonade, get a croissant.
We were talking about some Buffalo Trace. So
There we go. Of course. And then back to Steve.
So, I didn't know Steve as well as all the others. I didn't interact with him consistently on a daily basis, but, what made him great when I did interact with him is just how genuine he is. Just like Mark, would give you the shirt off his back, happy to help in any way possible, had so many reasons to be upset about the world, and he wasn't. He was very positive and really was a role model not only for myself and other school employees, but for a lot of the students who go to Oak Hill School. They're coming in with severe disabilities, whether physical or mental, and hearing Steve and seeing Steve was like a role model for them, some of them. And he was always willing to come to the school and talk to kids or do what he needed to do to make sure that these kids were given the best opportunity they could
Yeah.
in this life.
And there were so many people that had he helped so many thousands of people. He was a wonderful
Absolutely.
teacher. Yeah, and then there's so many people out there that will need assistance and won't have the opportunity to see someone like Steve.
Absolutely. He was, as everyone I'm sure is saying, he left us way too quickly.
Yeah. And a great teacher, very patient, innocent, just special person.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the first person I wanted to have on my podcast when I started it. So that's why he's epised 8.
That's
it's
awesome.
like I have to have Steve on.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful and fortunate that hour and a half is still there forever. 'Cause
Absolutely.
We had a wonderful conversation.
That's great.
Didn't you play with Joel a little bit and mess around with Joel? Or
No, I don't think so.
I thought he was a working dog.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Joel the dog.
Not
Yeah.
Steve, Joel.
So, sorry. I no
That
longer-
happened. I did that too.
I'm
like,
like-
yeah, Joel was great.
So
And his
so-
guide dog Steve. No, it's
Yeah, exactly. So he just had gotten Joel.
yeah.
And we were in a meeting together, and you're not supposed to approach the dog, and so I knew that, but Joel kept approaching me, and I would say to Steve, I'm sorry, like I'm not doing it, I'm not like handing out treats or anything, and we were just laughing, and that like throughout the entire meeting the dog would just not do what he's supposed to do. I'm like, Steve, I think you gotta like fire him or something, or you got to give him a written warning. I don't know, he's supposed to be working, but
So that must have been 10, 12 years ago?
about that, yeah. Probably about, give or take.
8?
Yeah,
Alright.
about 8. About 8 years ago, that's when I started at Oak Hill. So that was right when I first started. I'll never forget my first day coming to Oak Hill, my first day, having no idea where to go. He was one of the first people who saw me or, heard me and was able to help me get to the right area, to find HR, to do all these things that you don't know what you're supposed to do on your first day of work. So
Wow, that was your
he
welcome to
great.
Oak Hill
Yeah.
moment, your first friend.
Absolutely, first
First
friend.
interaction.
Yeah, and little did
That's-
I know who he was, or
Yeah.
had no idea. And then you get to hear about him, and then
Yeah.
you interact with him. And you really, you knew that quickly that the stories about him were true, and he's lived up to those stories.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. You're going to get your own podcast soon. I meant to tell you that. So what
No
number do you
worries.
want? What number you want? 105, 106, 103,
Let's do 107.
107. You
7
got
was
it.
my Nicholas's favorite number. So.
Perfect. 107. You
107.
got it.
All
We'll
right.
be hearing more from
Thanks,
Rob
Eric.
Parenti,
Thanks,
Board of
everybody.
Director. It was wonderful talking with you.
See you
Thanks,
around.
Rob. You'll
Thanks,
see him again
everybody.
at episode 107.
That's it. Thanks.
So yeah, we're on episode 97, celebration of Steve's life. I'm Eric Feeney.
I'm Steven.
Steven, nice to meet you. I'm Eric Feeney.
Nicole Feeney.
Oh.
Nice to meet you.
Funny.
Not related.
Glad we're doing this.
Funny seeing you here. Yeah, we've had some wonderful friends share about Steve. That's Steve at my summer camp. That's Steve in my classroom. I have extra copies. Please take some. We have extras. Please take one.
That was nice of you.
This is Steve with my daughters. Yeah, here, I'll give you one of each.
Oh, do you know those girls?
I'm Tina, by the way.
I'm Eric Feeney.
Eric, nice to meet you.
Tina, wonderful meeting you.
My wife, Tina.
See, everyone has a better half. Let's see.
Thank you so much. It'd be nice to frame these.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Let's see if we have more. There's 4, so.
These are my two, Bridget and Neela. They're twins. And then my colleague Rebecca, that's her son. They're all the same age. So, yeah. Isn't that a great picture? That is a great picture.
You see? Oh,
I think I'd love to say that we staged that, but like people just genuinely smiled at Steve that way.
I only gave you 3, but there's 4, so please take the one that you're missing.
This one. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I'll just be quiet. I'm gonna be back.
No,
Yeah,
you
good
hop
luck
in,
with that.
yell out. So thank you for sharing and thank you for being here. We're asking your name, Steve.
Steven.
Your
Deltatto.
your role,
I was kind of a
and just come a little closer to the mic too. Yep, right there.
consult, you might say, to Steve.
Okay.
We talk tech all the time, every week from the car, and talking, calling in, saying, "Hey, what do you think about this, and why doesn't it work?" And he would have some ideas and answers that we.
So were you a
could run all
consult
the
for
time.
Oak Hill or another
Yeah.
organization?
Well, I'm in the low vision and blindness business, as well as people who are cognitively impaired that need technology, most of it being tablets and computers for accessibility. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Very
so-
interesting. That's
yeah, so we associated, rubbed elbows in a lot of places. And at the peak of working together, Nicole was right there, leading the way.
Yeah, Steven actually had an office at 33 Coventry where Steve and I worked at Oak Hill. And so the three of us, I think, worked really well together for many years. But Steve and Steven were like 2 peas in a pod when it came to supporting people across the state with vision
Steve
impairments.
squared.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It was like that, and but we had many conversations about different things, and some were quite entertaining, and some were tough, but they were always fruitful in
Yeah.
what we came out with. So you had somebody to really bounce ideas off of and take things and go try them and make it work when it didn't work in the real world, and it was a great experience associating with him. I knew him from the days of Vision Dynamics, who you may have heard of that company that's moved on from the state, but that goes back to, I think, if I remember right, about 2005, and his next position and role was Oak Hill.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Yeah. A couple years later, I met him.
Yep.
2008, 9.
And then we
after the
didn't
girls were
introduce
born.
you. What's your role in relationship with Steve?
Oh, happy to tell. Nicole,
name first.
Nicole Feeney.
Okay.
Happily married to Eric Feeney as of Friends of Feeney. I met Steve in 2008, 2009 as I came into Oak Hill as an assistive technology specialist. He had just really started there maybe 2 years before me, 3 years before me. And so we were both kind of babies in the field of technology. And we got to know each other and have spent a good portion of the next 16 years working together. And a lot of those years side by side with Steven, so it's fitting that we would be doing this together, actually.
Yeah, a lot of good events, and really trying to reach out to people. And Oak Hill was such a great venue to bring people to that were local to the community and even from out of state in many cases. But it was always just fun.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, you could go to work and enjoy it and have a good time just catching up on stuff. And most of the time we were really talking tech. I mean, we really were. There was so much happening in Windows and so much happening with advances in technology coming out for low vision and in Braille as well for machines that did some marvelous things and still do.
We're going to play a storytelling game. It's called Best, Worst, First, Last. Think of your interactions with Steve. Think of your best interaction, your worst interaction, your first one, and your last one, if you can. Any order. Just to stir some memories.
Best was always picking Steve up and his dog at the time, whoever it was, and we went through a number of them, but in going to Texas Roadhouse in Manchester. That was our best times, for sure.
He looked forward to that.
The man who's, ate twice his weight.
Yeah.
True.
Loved a good steak, no matter what. It was always steak. And we just had a great time.
Did Joel leave fur everywhere in your car? Joel?
They all did.
Yeah.
There's always remnants. Yep.
I shared that on the podcast. I knew when Nicole picked up Steve because the back seat is just fur balls.
Yeah. Yep. And they'd always shake when they got in the car or the truck. Usually, fortunately I got a truck, and then we could handle Elvis in the truck. It was a big guy.
I just told a really good story actually about Joel getting in the back of the Durango. One day, Steve, he was so worried about hair all over the car, even though I could have cared less. My dogs are always in the car. So he brought this huge blanket one day to put on across the back seat of the car. But he put it in the car and then he flung it to spread it out across the seat, and so all the dog hair went absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And he had no idea, and I never laughed so hard in my life because I knew I'd be picking out Joel hairs for the rest of my life. It was sweet. He's sweet. He was always very thoughtful of everybody around him. So it's just one moment of time.
Yeah.
I shared on.
So that was best.
Go ahead. Yep.
And then you said, what was the other?
First, last.
Last. Oh. Gosh, the last memory of him? Well, before the tragedy, definitely would have been 2 weeks earlier we went to dinner. Texas Roadhouse. And all my conversations in between there were from the road. I would travel, and I still do, to Rhode Island frequently. You have that hour and a half to 2 hour ride coming home, and it was always, I wonder what Steve's doing. I got to ask him this question and ask him. It was always a question for him that related to something, and then we would just talk about anything under the sun too. And he had a very colorful life. Many conversations evolved around clocks. As you all probably know. If you knew Steve.
If you were on the phone with him on the hour, you knew.
You knew. That's right. Yeah. Hold on. She couldn't talk over all the sound of the clocks. Yep. Remember that. So that would have been the last moment, would have been the Texas Roadhouse as well. It's funny, it probably could start there too, but first meeting with him was when he was down in Cheshire at Vision Dynamics, and I walked in there and took on a job with Charlie Collins at the time, and it was really interesting. He was so welcoming, and obviously immediately could tell he just had such a great personality for where he was to do such a wonderful job with people. And I always admired his ability to just relate to somebody without being able to see them.
Yeah.
And be able to make them comfortable right away. It was really remarkable. Yeah. And at that time, he didn't have a dog at that time, as I recall.
No.
We're going back 20 years now, so it's quite a while ago. Yeah. Yep. But his love for his dogs was amazing. So that would be the first encounter. And didn't take long before we realized that he liked to eat. So
Has that been a theme tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. We would actually, just a quick story about Texas Roadhouse. every time we went, it was always, should I go bigger? Should I go bigger? You know? And he finally ordered that, like, pound-and-a-half T-bone, whatever it is, right, at Texas Road. And he goes, I have to take a picture of this and send it to my brother. Right? So he literally pulls out the camera, gets a shot of it, and sends it off with a real, you know, sarcastic note, like, top this if you can, right? So that was fun. What else? Now the other ones were. Well, you got to get a chance to talk here. I'm going to use up all the tape.
I can tell some stories. I'll tell you some quick ones. But what are we doing here? Best, last? No, best, worst.
First, last, best, worst.
Okay, so best would be. There are so many. I'm missing a whole bunch, but I think one of the best memories of Steve was doing a national conference together, and it was his first one. He was really nervous, but we were doing iPad tools for people with vision impairments, and so, you know, we prepared for months ahead of that. We got there, we had a script, we had a PowerPoint, we worked through it. We had to throw it out the window because halfway through the crowd was clamoring to hear Steve talk about his life experience and what he suggested. And so it really just became like the Steve show, all for very good reasons, because he had such incredible knowledge and was such a good teacher that we had to let the audience have what they wanted from the session. And we then took that workshop on the road for years, and he kept developing it and changing it, and then he started teaching young kids about guide dogs and his life experience, and really his whole life he had kind of pulled back into the practice of teaching others, and it's pretty spectacular the amount of people come up and say what an impact he had on their life. So that's the best.
I
There's so
always
many,
remember
but
saying that he didn't go to college as a teacher, but he's one of the best teachers that you've ever seen. So it sticks with me to this day that you shared that with me, because I went to college and I try to be the best, but to hear that Steve,
you're a close second.
I'll be honored and proud to be a close second to Steve. So, yeah, and Steve would come over our house. We went to his house for Thanksgiving.
Yes, cuckoo clocks and all.
Cuckoo clocks. You know, he told like an inappropriate story or said a curse word in front of the girls, and they were like 3, and they were like, I forgot what it was. So funny though.
It was funny. It was very funny.
He showed me how to work the dishwasher because it had a knob on it to show what time it was on, to set it. We did a chin-up contest, so
I bet he won that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was incredibly strong and would taunt Eric for years to come then.
Text messages are, did you do any chin-ups today?
I'd walk in the door and you'd be doing chin-ups just so that he could text Steve and tell him how many.
Did mine. Today. You know, about that steak competition. Like, here's my steak. Well, I'd go, I did 15. He'd text, well, I just did 20. I'm like, So, but it's an honor to be here on his birthday at his favorite place among some of his favorite people. It's wonderful meeting you, Steve. I've heard a lot about you, the Steves. I definitely heard a lot about you. Tina, wonderful meeting you. And it was wonderful having you on the podcast finally.
Finally.
It only took 97.
I guess I'm not that important.
Rob Parenti picked 107 to be a guest.
Oh.
So you want to pick one?
No, Rob's good. He's good.
You want 108, 109,
I'm
110?
not that interesting.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Any closing remarks or final shares, final thoughts?
I appreciate everything you're doing to bring back this time and ability for all of us to reminisce about a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the last thing that I would say is that I didn't get to tell you my last interaction with Steve, and I'd like to, because I think that a lot of people would be interested to hear how that went down. But the night before he passed away, we had a meeting on the books late in the afternoon, but it was the day, before the holiday, Thanksgiving, kind of everybody getting their stuff together for Thanksgiving. So I called him and I said, listen, if you want to just cancel and go about your business, we'll catch up after the holiday. He said, no, I have a million things that I want to tell you, as Steve would. And so we spent probably 2 hours on the phone, like through the evening, where I was like carrying him around on my cell phone on speaker as I was doing laundry. And we were chatting about all of the things he wanted to have happen in the Eleanor Brooks Blindness Support Center that he was the manager of. And it was digital accessibility. It was teaching more young people about, accessibility and all the technology that's available to them. And I was really so excited for the future. So it's heartbreaking on that level to have lost him, but I will say that we're working very hard to kind of keep his vision at the forefront of what we're doing. And there's some exciting things coming out of Oak Hill to remember him by. So I just thought it was important to share that.
Yeah, that was a rough day. We traveled to Lake George that day. It was a tough day, so
Yeah,
I remember it. So
it's very hard. So thanks for doing this.
thank you for being here. Love you.
Love you.
Wonderful meeting you, Steve. Love you. Love you.
Let's hug it out.
Adam.
Hey, how's it going?
Great to see you.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys were like Batman and Robin. Did you get the photos? I have. This is a photo. You're in this photo. Did you notice that? That's why I sent that. You're in the back taking pictures.
Yeah.
So that's at High Meadow Day Camp. There's Steve talking to a group of campers with Joel, and there's Adam in the background doing his thing. So feel free please take one of each if you'd like one, please.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I joked that you were Batman and Robin, but you worked very closely with Steve. Can you say your name, your role in relationship to Steve?
Sure. My name is Adam Kosakowski. I worked with Steve at Oak Hill as an assistive technology specialist, and he helped me get onboarded to the role there. Took me under his wing, taught me all the policies at Oak Hill, and more importantly, how to work with the people with disabilities that we were working with, and have fun. And we always made sure to go to a restaurant after every service. That was our big thing. We always talked about how we were very food motivated. He was my mentor at work, but we quickly became best friends.
Yeah.
And working with him was incredible.
Yeah. You guys were together a lot, so yeah, and you brought him to camp, and I will thank you for that. That means the world that, these kids got the opportunity to meet Steve and Joel and hear his wisdom and his wonderful words, and you were a big factor in that. You got them there, and you took pictures, and I can't thank you enough, because that was a very special day for me and a special day for those campers, and you're an integral part of that, so
yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. Any excuse to be on the road with Steve, be his ride. It was just always so simple and fun, and I learned a lot.
What were your top 3 restaurants with you and Steve?
Red Robin.
Nice.
Would love that, and I have a story about that depending on where this conversation goes. Let's see, Red Robin. There was a pizza place in West Hartford. They have really good gluten-free pizza, so he loved it.
Harry's? Bishop's Corner Harry's or Luna? Luna Pizza here. Harry's does a gluten-free.
Harry's. I think so.
Pepe's, Jimmy's, Bert's, Angelina's Pizza in West Hartford.
It was either Harry's or Angelina's.
Savoy.
But
I think it's Harry's.
I think so too. But yeah, he had to have gluten-free pizza, and that was one of the places that did it well, so we really liked that. And what's it? Chips.
Oh yeah, the breakfast spot.
Yeah.
In Wethersfield.
Yes.
It's now a Doral Marketplace.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, darn.
Sorry. I was gonna say so. Oh, you had a wonderful job. I've always wanted to talk with you, and now that you're here, you made video games accessible for those with needs. Like kids can play Mario Kart, or you changed controllers and buttons.
Yep.
Do you want to talk a little bit about? Is that what you currently do now? Did you?
At the moment, I am unemployed.
Okay.
I finished a contract with Xbox.
Yes,
that was
right.
A year and a half. It was incredible. So now I'm looking for another job in the video game industry. But
for Xbox, did you make them accessible? Was that part of the role at Xbox?
I was a program manager on their game and accessibility team. So I was working with teams across Xbox to make sure the Xbox platform was accessible to gamers with disabilities. the favorite thing I did was I helped update more than 70 pieces of documentation that they have online that talk about all the accessibility features to make sure they're all up to date. They're accurately describing what the features do so that the players and their caretakers and their guardians and their parents could find out what Xbox can do for them so that they can make a good decision in buying Xbox products.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Because I remember on Twitter, Time for Kids did something on accessibility, and I tagged you, and they retweeted me, and I tagged you in it, and you were like, yeah, that's awesome. So I just always had that in my memory that was your thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Red Robin. Come on, let's hear the Red Robin story.
Okay,
Because
so
we heard a Texas Roadhouse story from Steve, so now we have to hear a Red Robin story from Adam.
There's stories for every restaurant. So Red Robin, we were on the road that day. We just finished working with a person living with blindness in the community, and just like we do after every service, we go get food. So we went to Red Robin, and Steve, he loved food, but he was a very plain eater, right? So we get there, I'm ordering like a bacon, egg, and cheese burger and like a milkshake, the whole nine, and he asks the waitress, can I just get a single patty? Nothing on it, no buns, but gluten-free French fries or whatever the fancy French fries they have. So we have the meal, it's great. The bill comes, and I look at it because I have sight, it's easier for me, you know. And, you know, mine comes out to be as expected, and I look at Steve's meal, and they billed it a special way, and it was like a single patty was like $2.50, and the fries were like included somehow. And me, I just wanted to show off, and I'm like, you know what, Steve? I got this. I'll pay for both of us. No big deal. He's like, really, Adam? I'm like, yeah, I got this. Not a problem. But then a couple minutes later, I was like, Steve, I got to tell you, for some reason, your food was really cheap. And on the receipt, it said, after his meal, it said SD. And he and I are trying to figure out, what does SD mean? What does that mean? And I was like, well, I'm not going to argue it because it's cheap. So I pay it. We're walking to the van. And I was like, Steve, I figured it out. I know what SD means. Senior discount. They thought you were old. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, when you think about it, the waitress was really nice to you, really sweet. She was probably just trying to make your day and, like, you know, key it in a certain way so it was nice and cheap. We get in the van, and he's like, my life is over. He's like, no, oh my God. And I'm just laughing. And of course, I'm supposed to be driving. I'm in no state to drive. So I'm just laughing for like 10 minutes straight. And he's, I don't know, rethinking his entire life.
That's great.
But that was a great memory of Steve and I at Red Robin.
That is hilarious. That makes my day. That's good. Funniest story of the day right there. That's hilarious. That's so funny. Not picking favorites, but that was pretty funny. SD. See, I could see him getting upset about that.
Yes, right? You can see it. He was so expressive, and he didn't think he was so expressive. He thought he had a poker face. And I remember one day telling him, Steve, you don't have a poker face, man. You wear everything on your face. He's like, do I? I'm like, yeah, man, totally do. So anyone who knows Steve, when we tell that story, they're like, I can see his face.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to be there. You just knew.
Yeah, we have our motto, be a good friend. I said it before, pick up trash that's not yours, hold the door, be charitable.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and you mentioned some characteristics that made Steve a good friend. Are there any others that you'd like to share?
Man, he probably the most caring friend I've ever had. I only knew Steve for a couple of years, sure, but I worked with him every day. So the amount of quality time I spent with him was like innumerable, right? He was, when I told him that my wife and I were trying to have a kid and we were having a hard time, we had to go through infertility services and that kind of thing. Out of everyone I knew, even friends and family, Steve was our biggest supporter. Like every day when I came in with an update on how fertility was going, because it was really challenging with insurance and all that stuff, he was just always talking about how, like, out of everyone he knew, he's like, you guys deserve a kid the most. He's like, I pray about it every day. I just want to let you know. And, like, I'm really pulling for you. It was just having that support every day. Steve had a way to let you know that he cared. And he was so nonchalant, and it was just easy for him to share it, where other people might be embarrassed to show that level of care. And for him, it was just natural.
Yeah.
And I was always thankful when he did it, but I was always taken aback and, like, unable to reciprocate in the Steve way, which is why moments like this are so important, because I feel like I'm making it up, and now it's easier for me to talk about it for whatever reason. That was Steve in a nutshell.
Wow. Yeah, you put it very well. Yeah, Adam, I'm so happy that you're here. When I reached out, you honestly, when I say that you liked a post in the group, I was honestly looking on Twitter for your Twitter name, because we had that interaction for Time Life for Kids over the accessibility, and all of a sudden I'm like, where is Adam? I have to make sure Adam's here. You liked something on Facebook, and I was like, oh. And I inboxed you, and I was like, please tell me you're coming.
Yeah.
Please tell me that you're a share. And you shared some wonderful moments, and really our listeners you painted a picture for Steve, and it was wonderful talking with you. Thank you again for bringing him to camp. Thank you for being a good friend. You're an amazing guy. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, and please let me know. Hopefully I didn't cut you off. Anything else?
No, this is great.
All right. Well, thank you, Adam. We'll be in contact.
Yeah.
Leigh-Ann Hammond.
Leigh-Ann, yep. And your role at NEAT? Or did you work at NEAT?
No, I didn't work at NEAT. I work at Oak Hill.
Oak Hill, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oak Hill?
I work in the maintenance department.
Oak Hill.
Oak Hill strong.
And then it says, my tech is better than yours. My tech is better than yours. You know what that's from? My tech is better than yours. I'd have to teach you, but I'd have to charge. Oh, hold on. Are you leaving? Oh, Leigh-Ann, can we get Bridget some airtime real quick?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Bridget, come on. You get a little airtime first. Right here. Actually, pop on. Pop on real quick.
Oh, I love
You're
your
going to look
hat.
at the camera. So, Bridget, we're going to just share that Bridget was such a good friend today. You helped out, and you helped sell some merch, and that means so much. You are a good friend. How'd you do? Talk to us. What'd you sell? How much did you raise?
I think there were 2 20s and 2 5s and I believe some other stuff, and a lot of people were interested, but they didn't really have the time, but they really appreciated that they were selling merch, and even one of them gave you guys, not just for merch, but they gave you some, they donated some money as well instead of merch.
Wow.
So,
What was the most popular item?
probably the hat and the pins.
Pins. All right. Which hat? The trucker hat or the winter hat?
The winter hat.
It's winter. You need that winter hat.
Yeah.
Well, Bridget, you are a good friend. Our motto is be a good friend, pick up trash, hold the door, give a compliment, and volunteer some time. And you volunteered, and you helped raise money for a nonprofit organization. That means a lot. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Bridget, you want to introduce who's that? Bring her over. Have her come next. Okay, or not. Anything you'd like to share?
No, not really.
I know Katie Hanley's your mom, but what makes her a good friend or a good mom?
Usually she, even though she gets hurt, she still rethinks what she does, and she's really nice.
Yep.
And understands how we feel, and when we need to talk about something, she would listen, and she would be like, why didn't you tell me in the first place? She would let us speak, and I would understand.
Talking, open communication. That's very important. And you know I have a Bridget too.
Yeah, Bridget.
Bridget. Mine is BRIGID, and yours is BRIDGIT. ET. Oh boy, I'm sorry. BRIDGET. And how about your babysitters? Neela and Bridget.
They're really nice.
Look at the camera and tell them about Neela.
Neela is super kind. She's a lot like her sister, really energetic and really helpful. I also like Bridget because they're both a lot like each other, but Bridget is also really energetic and really kind, like Neela as well, and they both have a lot of things in common that make them a good friend.
Oh, well, it was wonderful talking with you.
Yeah.
Don't forget Wolfpack game coming
I
up.
will.
You're gonna sell some merch there?
Yeah,
You're
I
hired.
will. I promise.
Grab a magnet.
Hopefully my sister will pitch in too.
Deal. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Leigh-Ann. Sorry about that. I wanted to make
no
sure.
worries.
Bridget, take care. Great job. Leigh-Ann. Yep, at Oak Hill.
At Oak Hill. Yep. I work in the maintenance office. Been there forever. And I lived across the hall from Steve on the Oak Hill campus.
Oh wow. Okay,
So-
that's the relationship.
Yes.
When you went into the door and to the left to Steve's,
Yeah.
were you,
I
are
was
you-
directly
or upstairs
across
or
the
on right?
hall. Directly across on the same floor.
No way.
So we actually shared a wall, which was very interesting for a cuckoo clock enthusiast.
Oof.
Um,
That's a common topic. I don't know if we noticed.
I'm
The cuckoo clocks.
The
He owned
cuckoo
like
clocks are a very popular topic with Steve.
one grandfather clock, 4 mantle clocks, and 21 cuckoo clocks.
That's about right.
Last
yeah.
time I talked with him.
Yes. Sometimes they're in the shop,
Yep.
so he's always got something rotating. But yeah, just an amazing.
So you heard them from your room, from your place?
Yes, I could hear them. And it's funny because when he and I moved in within about a week of each other. And he was kind of slow to put the clocks up. But once they were all up, he was in full force. And I could only hear the ones on the shorter section of shared wall that we had.
Yeah, his living room side, short side.
Yeah, his second bedroom backed up to my living room. And I could hear them. But more importantly, I could hear them when they weren't working
Oh.
or when Steve would go away, because Steve would shut his clocks off whenever he would go storm chasing or out of town for a conference. And it was at that point that I really noticed the clocks because they weren't there.
Oh, wow. So you got accustomed to them as well?
I got very accustomed to them to the point where it was very subconscious. Like, they would go off at midnight, and I'd be like, okay, I'm up way too late. I have got to go to bed.
Oh, wow. Little reminder, friendly
yeah,
reminder.
Exactly. Or, I'm running late for work. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the 9 o'clock? I thought it was only 8 o'clock. Gotta go. So, yeah.
So they were also helpful.
They're also
Annoying and helpful.
They were more annoying when you were over on his side trying to have a conversation. Because
Yeah.
there'd be about a 3-minute window at the top of every hour.
Oh, yeah, they didn't go off at the same time.
No, he kind of spaced them out a little. And you'd have to stop conversation. But
It's almost like an airplane flying overhead. Everyone
Yes.
stops and then pause, then continue the conversation.
exactly. So the clocks were definitely an extension of Steve.
Are you still currently there?
I've actually moved into Steve's apartment.
Wow.
After he passed, one of the things he and I had joked about for a while was, Steve, if you ever move out, I'm stealing your apartment. I want a 2-bedroom. I'm moving in. So obviously not the way we wanted things to happen, but
Do you still have the dishwasher with the knobs on it?
I have the dishwasher. He had gotten a newer one, and I still have the
little markers to
little
match
markers. Yes, I've kept the markers.
up? Yeah, wow.
His family let me keep a couple of things after he passed, so I still have a beautiful mirror that I always loved, and a side table, couple of things like that I was able to. The family didn't need them, and so there's those parts of Steve. And his mom actually just gave me one of his cuckoo clocks.
Wow.
So
that was going to be my next question.
So the clock has come home. It's one of the smaller one-day clocks. I haven't been able to turn it on yet, but it's sitting in its place. It's beautiful, and it really gives me a chance to just kind of remember things.
That's special.
Yeah. So, but it's wonderful. So it's nice to have it back, and at some point I will get the courage to wind it and give it a listen.
We talked on episode 8 at minute 23. Joel knows when it's dinner time. At minute 25, we talked about the collection of clocks, the price of clocks at 28, and how to adjust the times of clocks of 31. So if you want to learn how to adjust the clocks,
I might need that.
They're weighted differently, and the importance of having the weight and putting them in the right place, and just he was an amazing human. What was some of your favorite interactions or hangouts?
Gosh, Steve and I go back 15 years. We were living next to each other for 15 years. And, we had lots of great conversations in the hallway, or he'd invite me over, or vice versa. And we would just chew the fat about Oak Hill and coworkers and all that kind of stuff. But once COVID came around, Steve was working from home, and I was working in the office crazy hours. And he and I got talking one day, and he was like, we got to find a way to sit outside and just get out of the house, get out of the office. So we picked up a little propane fire pit, and Steve deemed it Oak Hill After Dark. And which came about one night after a few cocktails and gossiping and secrets and all that fun stuff, and all these great stories that we were telling. And we had some friends over, his friends, my friends, and we were just sitting around one night, and Steve's like, we have to name this place Oak Hill After Dark. We only talk about certain things here. And it's been deemed Oak Hill After Dark, and really just that ability to have a space. He and I would get out of work at different times, and we would text each other and be like, it's a fire pit night. I'm like, I'll meet you there. And sometimes we'd order takeout and just sit around the fire and eat. Sometimes we'd throw something on the grill, and sometimes we just pour a cocktail.
Now where's that, on right in the front of the doorway, or outside of the house?
It's on the back side of the house, just as you're walking in the main, like what we call the main entry, which is on the back side.
Yep.
And we got a picnic table out there, and an umbrella, and this beautiful fire pit, and I tell you,
what was his favorite drink?
Oh, Steve only had one drink. Literally, he would only have one drink, and it was a vodka and cranberry juice, and it only took one. And his whole personality would just explode. Anybody that's ever had a cocktail with Steve knows. And he only needs the one. Sometimes he'll have two, but he didn't need that second one.
That's great.
But yeah, just that fire pit really, he talked about the fact that it really saved him during COVID, because he was such a social guy.
Yeah.
And having to work from home, even with live streaming meetings and things like that, it was just very restrictive and confining for him.
That was his biggest challenge, the pandemic.
Yeah.
He had a difficulty recognizing people because he recognized by voice. So the masks.
Oh, yes.
Didn't like.
Yeah.
The social distancing. He couldn't see someone because he liked to get closer.
Yes.
So that was a huge challenge.
It really was. And we kind of struggled through it in different ways, because it affected us so differently. But just being able to, we kind of created our own pod, and that really gave us the opportunity to still have that contact and all of that. And it was just, I don't know if I would have made it through the pandemic sane without him. And he would just check in on me. He'd shoot me a text message. Hey, heard you didn't come home till 8 o'clock. How's everything going up the hill? And, it was like, oh, at least somebody noticed, and things like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I didn't always appreciate at first or notice at first, but he was always on top of checking in on people. I would just get into a zone where I was just exhausted and wasn't thinking about anything, and the next thing I know, my phone's blowing up with a story or something funny that happened or whatever, or come meet me by the fire pit, I got a good one for you, and that kind of thing. But he did it with everybody. He always checked in on people.
Yeah. And
he really kind of taught me to do that, because it was just never something I thought about as much as, checking in on the family and, oh, it's been 6 weeks, I should call that friend and see how things are going. Yeah. But he was just so good about it. And it wasn't just me, it was with everybody. So that was always such a cool thing. It was funny, I was thinking about this on the way over. One of the things Steve taught me about myself that I never realized, but I'd always done. Steve and I used to go out grocery shopping. We'd go to church together. We'd go to the mall together. We'd throw the dog in the back of my SUV and we'd go out for a drive, whatever it was. And Steve taught me that I never drive away from the house and return to the house the same way. Steve and I would go to the mall in Manchester. I will drive down Tower Ave and come back Blue Hills Avenue. I would, we'd go to the grocery store. I'd go down Cottage Grove, come back Granby Street. And it's just always how I am, and I never noticed I did it. And, one day, I'm for whatever reason, I was coming back on the same road, and Steve's like, "You've never done this." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You never come back the same way. What's going on?" And I'm like, "I have no idea, and I never noticed this about myself."
Wow.
And I'm like...
He's very observant, especially with his vision.
Exactly. He had such a good... Well, obviously, he had this amazing memory. He's that guy that could tell you what day of the week that snowstorm fell on and what the temperature was and what time of day. I mean, he had that very, very specific way of memorizing things. And, he was telling me about an Uber ride that he was on one day. He goes, and I realized I had put the wrong address into the Uber because I knew I was not driving the same route that he would have driven with me. He's like, and I realized I gave the Uber driver the wrong return address. He's like, so I had to reroute everything. He goes, but I knew that because there's only 3 ways to get home, and we weren't doing any of them. And I learned those 3 ways from you.
Wow.
So yeah, it was those kinds of little things that he noticed that I never did, and he would bring those things to light for me. So yeah, even now when I go home a different way, I'm like, I'll think about Steve. Or moreover, if I come back the same way, I'm like, don't ask Steve. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh wow.
So.
Yeah, you keep him here.
Oh, absolutely.
It really touched me that you have one of his clocks, because I was always wondering where are the clocks, and I'm so happy that, number one, that you're in his place, so you're like, he's watching over you, and you talk to him about different directions, and you have his clock.
It took a while for court to... All of his stuff had to go through probate, so it took almost a year before his family could even start gifting anything. But all of his clocks are home with his parents. Well, his mom and his brother and his sister-in-law. And, right now they're all safe in storage. And they definitely want to find something to do with those, something meaningful.
Yeah.
So, and there's some people that are interested in a few of them. And, but the family doesn't want to see him just, get sold off on eBay or anything.
Yeah.
Because they were just so special.
Absolutely.
To all of us. To all of us.
Absolutely.
So, I just have a million great memories of Steve. We were driving around one day, got into a conversation about religion, and he and I were both Catholic, and I hadn't been to church in like 3 or 4 years, and he hadn't been to church since college, and next thing you know, we start going to church together every Sunday, which was its own learning experience for the church congregation to have a blind person with a guide dog. Priest was a little nervous at first because he wasn't really a dog guy. And you had parents that might have been a little leery of the dog, and kids that wanted to come and play with the dog. And so Steve would really take an opportunity to explain guide dogs to people, which was always a really cool experience to be able to watch him teach people those things. I do have a really good memory of Steve at church. We'd gone up for communion, and in the Catholic Church, you walk up and you take this wafer, and generally they put this wafer in your hand, and then you pick it up and you consume it. Well, doesn't Steve drop it? Which is kind of a big deal in the church, but not the end of the world. And Joel instantly turned his head, stuck his tongue out, and grabbed it off the floor. And the priest, the look on the priest's face when this happened, and Steve was like, "Did Joel just eat that?" And I'm like,
oh my goodness. I just dropped the wafer on Sunday. This Sunday.
Did
That's
you?
so funny that you say that.
If Joel had been there.
Right?
Steve and I always talked about the fact that we should write a book about things that happened that the blind guy didn't see. We would go grocery shopping, and we were at Geisler's in Windsor one day, and they have 3 bins of dog bones at the end of an aisle, and you can bag them up by the pound. And we were walking by the aisle, we weren't even in the aisle, and Joel just kind of slid his face over, grabbed a bone out of the bottom, and kept walking, never broke stride. And Steve was like, "Oh my God, what does this dog do when I can't see these things?"
Oh, that's funny.
Or
Joel's a sneaky one.
Joel was always sneaky. Elvis had potential to be sneaky. We were still learning his behaviors. But Steve would never see the people react. And it would be as simple as, like, Steve and I would be walking through the grocery store, and he would stop to look at things, and he had to look at everything really close up. And I would just keep walking and walking and walking, and people would look at me like, "How rude, you just left the blind guy." And I'm like, I knew he'd catch up with me. I wasn't worried about it. Or we'd turn a corner somewhere, and somebody would be deathly afraid of the dog. And Steve would never see those reactions.
Oh, yeah.
But he would hear me kind of chuckle, like, "Oh, you just scared the bejesus out of somebody." And he was like, "I miss all the good stuff." But it's just the way it was.
Well, I'm glad. I think we saved the best for last. You were
Oh,
great.
Thank you.
And you were the closest, and shared the memories in the house. I can't get over that. And just the clock. And
I always tell people, everybody is more than welcome to come over and spend time. The apartment has definitely changed. I had to change a lot of things for my own sanity. But there are definitely pieces of Steve.
I'm going to take you up on that.
Please do. Please do.
Coming over.
We'll sit by the fire, we'll tell funny Steve stories and drink vodka and cranberry juice.
Oak Hill After Dark. I want to take part, and I'm going to drink a vodka and cranberry.
I tell ya.
Let's set that up. I'm going to write your number. I'll give you my card.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Nicole knows how to get me.
Oh, yeah. Hello. Oops.
Oops. That wife of yours, she knows how to get. But, always love to have people come and share stories with Steve. And
we'll do that. Let's set that up soon.
Oak Hill After Dark will never be the same without him, but it also wouldn't be here without him. So.
Yep. And we're honored to talk here on his birthday.
Yep.
He would have been 51.
Yep.
At his favorite place. He was around today. His favorite people were here, so I'm honored.
It was actually very interesting. On my drive over here, from the apartment to here, there was a Honda pickup truck with a license plate that just read Steve.
Today.
All the way here. Yep, from the house to Panera.
Wow.
And
well, you make sure you take a different way home.
I'm gonna have to.
Or take the same way and maybe see this license plate again. Let the car take you. Let's see what happens.
We'll see what happens. But, well, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, it was an honor to speak with you. I've seen you in multiple places. Remember we saw each other at the Lions pancake
that's
breakfast?
Right. Yep.
So,
I'll be back there.
Yep. So I see you around. You're a wonderful person. Thank you. You shared some very wonderful moments.
Well,
we got to know Steve a little better.
Good.
Don't go anywhere. But we're gonna. Yeah, this was episode 97. We celebrated the life of Steve. The 100th podcast is coming up on February 12th at Playhouse on Park. I would love for you to join us, and we're going to spread the word. We have some special guests. The 100th podcast, February 12th, Playhouse on Park. And again, this was episode 97. We had about maybe 10 people shared about Steve. So
Wonderful.
it was an amazing night, an amazing day. Proceeds, that 25% of everything purchased at Panera today went to Friends of Feeney. It was an honor. So usually I end with, we say be a good friend on 3, but I think we should say Friends of Steve on 3. Would you join me?
Absolutely.
1, 2, 3. Friends of Steve.